I'm sure you've been in a situation like this before. You're at a party, a casual gathering with friends, or simply the lunch break at work. You run into a coworker. The two of you start with the usual questions. How have you been lately? Which department do you work in? How long have you been doing this job? The conversation goes pretty well for the first few minutes. And then suddenly, silence. Just a few seconds, but it makes the atmosphere feel strange. Your mind starts racing. What should I say next? Did I just say something stupid? Is this person getting bored with this conversation? And then the familiar thing happens. One of you pulls out a phone. The other just stands there staring absent-mindedly. In a situation like this, how should you handle it so it doesn't become awkward and the conversation doesn't hit a dead end? Watch this entire video as we break down in detail why this happens. Many people think this happens because they're not good at communication, but the truth is that uncomfortable feeling isn't really about you. It comes from the way the human brain reacts to silence in social situations. Psychology number 1. The brain fears being judged. In every conversation, whether we realize it or not, our brain is quietly trying to answer a very simple question. Does this person accept me? This is not random. For most of human history, people lived in small groups. If you were rejected by the group, it didn't just mean loneliness. It could mean losing protection, losing access to food, and even losing your chance of survival. Because of that, over time, the human brain developed a system that is extremely sensitive to social rejection. In a conversation, when everything flows smoothly, two people talking, lightly laughing, exchanging ideas, the brain feels safe. But the moment a pause appears, an internal alarm system starts to activate. Within just a few seconds, many thoughts can appear. Did I say something wrong? Is this person bored? Are they judging me? In reality, most of the time the other person is thinking the exact same things. The truth is, silence is not a failure in communication. It's simply a very natural pause in a conversation. But because the brain hates uncertainty, we often feel pressure to fill that silence with words. And that pressure makes many people think they're bad at conversation, when in reality, it's just a completely normal psychological response. And that same pressure is what makes you feel confused, blush, or have sweaty hands when you meet a beautiful girl at a party and have no idea what to say. Psychology number 2. The biggest mistake in conversation. When it comes to communication, many people believe that to be good at talking, you need to talk a lot. You need to tell great stories, say interesting things, or always have something smart to share. But psychology shows the exact opposite. Human beings have a very interesting trait. We like talking about ourselves. When someone has the chance to share their experiences, interests, or opinions, the brain releases dopamine, a chemical associated with positive feelings. In other words, talking about ourselves makes us feel more comfortable and excited. That's why in a conversation, the person who allows the other person to talk more is often perceived as interesting, friendly, and easy to connect with, even if they don't talk very much themselves. Let's take a simple example. Someone says to you, "Last weekend there was a great match between Manchester United and Chelsea." A common response from many people is, "Oh, really?" And the conversation almost stops right there. But if you simply ask a few more basic questions, everything can change completely. For example, what was the score? Who scored? Was it an intense match? Or simply, which team are you a fan of? Even if you're not someone who follows soccer, these questions can still keep the conversation going. The other person now has the opportunity to talk more about the match, the team they support, or how they felt while watching the game. The important thing here is not how much you know. What matters is knowing how to encourage others to share. And that's the big difference between someone who is just talking and someone who truly knows how to have a conversation. Psychology number 3. The secret of connection. Finding common ground. There's an interesting thing about human psychology. We tend to feel closer to people who are similar to us. From an evolutionary perspective, humans lived in small groups for tens of thousands of years. In that environment, recognizing who belonged to your group was extremely important. Because of that, Our brains unconsciously search for familiar signals. Is this person like me? Do we share any interests, experiences, or opinions? Just one small thing in common can completely change the conversation. Have you ever noticed that when you move far away from home or travel to another country, meeting someone from the same hometown suddenly makes you feel incredibly happy? You immediately feel more friendly and comfortable with them, right? That's common ground, the thing that gives people plenty to talk about. Let's go back to the soccer example. Someone says, "Last weekend there was an amazing match between Manchester United and Chelsea." At first, you might just ask a few questions like, what was the score? Who scored? But if during the conversation you discover a shared interest, for example, you also used to follow Manchester United, or you also enjoy watching big matches, everything changes immediately. You might say, "Oh, I watch Manchester United too. What do you think about their performance this season?" At that moment, the conversation no longer feels like two people struggling to find something to talk about. It becomes a natural exchange between two people who share the same interest. Common ground doesn't have to be something big. Sometimes it's simply liking soccer, living in the same city, having worked in a similar job. These small similarities make the brain feel more familiar and safe. And when people feel safe, they tend to open up more, talk more, and connect more quickly. So where is the real secret behind good conversations? When we look back, we often think communication is a complicated skill, that to be good at talking, you need to be funny, intelligent, or always have interesting stories to tell. But in reality, good conversations often come from very simple things. First, don't be too afraid of silence. Silence doesn't mean the conversation has failed. Sometimes it's just a natural pause for both people to think or move to another topic. Second, ask questions. Simple questions like, what was the score? Who scored? Or which team are you a fan of? Can open the door to a much longer conversation. When you ask the right question, the other person gets the chance to share more. And finally, look for common ground. Just one shared interest, one similar experience, or one topic that both of you care about can make the conversation feel much more natural. Many people enter conversations thinking, what should I say to sound interesting? But people who are good at communication often think differently. They ask themselves, what makes this person interesting? Because in the end, the goal of a conversation is not to impress someone, it's to make the other person feel heard, understood, and connected. I hope you can use these 3 psychological insights to better handle and improve your conversations. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel so we can continue learning and sharing more life lessons together.